Hello, my name is Leanne. Welcome to my channel, Self-Reliant Living. So let's have a look. So this is the machine. Let me see if I can move that a bit closer. So this is the, I think it's pronounced Empisal Deluxe Automatic sewing machine. So it's a vintage sewing machine, very, very heavy. I think it's about, it feels probably about maybe 15 kilos or more. It's solid. It sits in the box like this. This I picked up at a market, local market, for around $20, hoping to restore it, thinking that it needed some work. But it turns out it was absolutely pristine and didn't need any work at all other than a general clean and some oil. So I just thought I'd share what I know about it. I've had a hard time trying to find information about this machine. So let's look at it closely together. It did come with a box with attachments, and if I open that up, you can see it has these, what they call cams. These are sewing pattern cams, and they create different types of stitches. Ordinarily, this machine just does straight stitch and has a variable zigzag. Now, what I mean when I say variable zigzag is as you're sewing, you can move the dial across as you're sewing, and it changes the width of your zigzag. You can also lock it in place if you just want to have the same zigzag. I originally set this up, and you'll see in a previous video I show you how I did free motion embroidery with this machine, but I've set it back up with the normal foot so it can do straight stitch, zigzag stitch, and I'm going to show you how we use these cams to get all the different stitches. I'll bring the camera in close so you can see in a lot more detail. But I've done some tests before, and you can see here, these are the different stitches this machine does. This is just on some cotton fabric, and it does a really nice job of the different stitches. So I'm going to explain that process with this nice and close, with the camera nice and close to the machine. So I hope that helps. I had trouble finding information on this particular machine. I'm here in Australia, and I believe this machine is a, it's very similar, or it could have been relabeled as a Montgomery Ward signature. So I downloaded online, went online and found a manual, and this is very similar setup to how to thread this machine. It doesn't talk about the disc cams that this one has, but I have older, other vintage machines that have disc cams. They're not a hat version, like this is called a hat shape. They're not that kind of shape. They're an actual disc that I use in my other vintage machines, but this particular machine uses these ones, and you can see the different patterns on the actual top of the hats or the disc cams, and that's the pattern that it creates. So I'll go through and explain all this up nice and close, and hope that helps somebody else if they've got a machine that's similar. But in terms of actually trying to find an age of it, all I know is it's been rebranded. It was sold here, this brand, in Australia, and I suspect this is about a 1960s, maybe even early 1970 model. I'm not sure if it's pronounced Empisal or Empisal. I think it's Empisal Deluxe Automatic. but it's a lovely looking machine. It's solid and it works beautifully. So I'll be back in a minute. All right, so here's the front of the machine. So if I start up this end first, here's the little disc that I was talking about that has sew or darn written on it. Now when you're just doing decorative stitches or straight stitch or zigzag, you would have it set to sew. And what that does, that controls these feed dogs. See these as I turn the wheel? You can see these little feed dogs down in here. They move up and down and that pushes the fabric along, okay? When you turn this dial to darning, if I put over here and turn the dial, can you see those feed dogs move up and down? So when you want to darn it or do free motion embroidery, what it does is lowers the feed dogs so your plate is clear. There's nothing there. But if I put them back up, you can feel the teeth. Okay, so that's what that means. This here is your stitch regulator. Now your stitch regulator goes all the way from 8 to 0. It changes the length of your stitches. I'll explain this more as we start sewing. This here is the width of your zigzag. So how wide you want your zigzag. And this is to do with how close you want the zigzags with. All right, well, let me show you how it all works. Basically, you take your thread at the back. So you've got your motor there with your thread. It comes through this first loop. So this is the front of the machine, you're looking at it. You feed it through this front loop here, then through this eye, then it comes down in between the discs here. You wrap it around. Let me just move that up so it's clear. You wrap it around the bottom and you've got a hook on this spring here. So you come in through there, you bring it around here, and then it hooks underneath the spring. You put it in behind here, you go up into that, back down through these loops and into the needle, and you feed it through the needle from left and it exits out the right, okay, from left to right. So first of all, to be able to lift this up and let it pivot in the box, I need to unlock it. This is what holds it in. It's only loose, it only needs to be loose. So I'll do that, and then I'm just going to lift this up, and let's show you. I have to hold it because otherwise it'll tip over. But this is what underneath looks like. And you can see how pristine this is. It's so clean. Now, see where all the red paint is around certain holes? They're your oil points. So that's where you want to put a drop of sewing machine oil into each of those little red dots. And then you turn the hand wheel to get the oil working through the mechanics of it. And here's your bobbin. That's your bobbin. I'll pull that out and show you how that works, but that's so inside, that's the bobbin case. You've got a bobbin, which is, if I have a look back up to the top, this is that green, well actually it's a variable coloured thread. I think it's green and white, and that's it there, okay? So, you know, you can, this is hinged, so you don't have to necessarily lift it to get the bobbin out, but you need a fairly small hand to get in there. Sometimes it's just easier to flip the lid and hold it. You just got to be careful you don't tip the machine because it is quite heavy. So that's that. All right, and then when we get to the cams, they go in the top here, and I'm going to show you how to do that when we get to it. All right, so I'm going to just start with normal straight stitch. Now, if I have a look at my settings, I've got it on 0. That means I'm not engaging. This is more to do with your zigzag. So I'm just going to leave that as is, and I'm going to leave my stitch length at 2.5, okay? And make sure you have this on sew, not darn. You don't want it on darn, you want it on sew, because we're going to sew with it. So this is the reverse button. So you would just start sewing, hit the reverse button, and you can see it's reversing, and then release the button and it sews again. I'm just letting that fabric do it by itself, so it's a bit wonky, but you can see that's how it's stitching, so it's quite nice. Okay, so let's start using these cams. As you can see, there's different patterns from these cams. Now, what we need to do is put the cam, now I also need to mention there's an oil point up here as well. Don't forget to oil that. Anywhere you see red paint on the machine, underneath, on the outside, in here, they're all oil points. And you just put a single drop of oil in, providing your machine is sort of clean. Now, so to be able to use these cams, what we need to do is to pick one. So it doesn't really matter which ones. These ones here, you can see I've just done some testing. So at the moment, the machine is set for a 2.5 stitch, straight stitch. This is on 0, so I haven't engaged any zigzag. So this is on straight stitch. So if I just go here, you can see that's normal straight stitch. Now, to start using the cam, when you lift the little lid like this, you might find this swiveled here and here. All this does is lock everything in and engages it, all right? So what we're going to do is to put a one of these in. We'll just use this number 17. Now, as you can see, it's got some little holes in there. So those little holes, one of them needs to line up with this little thing that sticks up here. So to be able to do that, you need to slide this out the way, because if I try and put that on, it won't go in because this is out in the way. Now to get that out the way, all you do, can you see when I move this over, let me take that off. When I move this over, it actually allows us to put the cam in. So I'm going to hold that open, and you could, if you wanted to, let me see if I can lock it in place. So I'm going to hold it open with my hand and then feed that on and just position that disc so it goes in one of the holes. Now you can put it round this way if you wanted to, whatever works, okay? Then you slide that down and that just sort of locks everything in. Now, if I was just to start sewing without changing any of my dials, this is what happens. It just does zigzag, okay? Because it's engaged the zigzag, but it doesn't really do the pattern. So it's really important that you take your stitch regulator and you want it positioned, get that closer, you want this positioned between 0 and 1. So if I do it to the first dot, you can see the first dot there, if I line it up with that, what that does is makes the stitches really close together like this. And if I separate them a little bit, it puts a bit of gap. You can see the gap there. It puts a gap in between the stitches. This condenses the stitches to make them a really tight pattern, and this puts a little bit of space in them. Okay, so it's really just adjusting it to how you want. So this is at 1, and then you can see I'm slowly turning it down, back down to 0 to get it to the right. So let's do it at 1 so you can see what that looks like. And just go slow, don't sort of go fast in this step. Just take it nice and slow, do a nice steady pace. And you can see the disc moving around. Now when you see how it's got little stripes on the disc, these little stripes here, I'll show you here down on the thing. These stripes mean that's the end of the pattern. So when it comes round to there, it's the end of the pattern. So it's just so you know as you're sewing along, if you want to stop at the pattern at a certain place, always at the same point, you can use these as a guide. So now I'm going to turn this dial up to dot number 2. Right, so that's dot number 2. We're just going to start again with dot number 2. We're going to go nice and slow. And you can see the hat turning around. There's the start of the pattern. And once it's done a bit more, I'll show you how that looks. Alright, so if I lift that up. So this is where we had it on the first dot, and you can see that brings the pattern very, very close, but you've got to watch your fabric, because if your fabric doesn't move underneath, what happens is it just starts sewing in the same place constantly. And this was at number 2, so I'm calling it number 2. It's actually just the second dot on the stitch regulator. It's not number 2 because number 2's round here. So from what I've worked out, if you want to use these cams, you need to put your dial somewhere between 0 and 1, depending on how you want it to look. I think for me, this is the sweet spot at right in the middle of those two things. Okay, so that's how it looks. Now let's change the cam to something else. So remember to remove it. You just slide that back to disengage it, and then we're going to open that up and I can lift that off. All right, now I can't hold the camera and do that with one hand. I don't think oh yeah, I can. There you go. So you just lift that off. All right, and then we're going to choose another pattern. Let's do this one here. Let's do this sort of shape. So the trick is to line up the holes, and of course I'm not going to be able to get that on because that's in the way. To do that, I just hold that out of place and then push that in place and then lock it back in and then lock that in place. And we're going to start sewing again. Oh, I need my foot down. I've got it on the stitch regulation, I've got it at the halfway point. And you can see that moving around. Just everything moves around. That's on the stitch regulation of halfway. And sorry, while I've not been looking, it's changed direction on me. Now, do you want to know if you can reverse? You push your button in and you can reverse over the pattern and come forward again. Bearing in mind it might get a bit thick. See how it's just staying in that one spot? So that's how you work the cams. So that's how you work the cams. They're not difficult, and it does some lovely stitches. You've just got to do a little bit of practice, and you know, if you just follow those steps, it'll work quite well. If you're interested in doing free motion embroidery, have a look at my other video that I've done on this same machine. I hope that helps everybody. If you have any questions, please pop the questions in the comment section below. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to my channel, which is Self-Reliant Living. I'll just put different videos on time to time about different crafts that I'm doing. I sew a fair bit. I mosaic crochet. And if you go to my shorts, there's a lot of short reels on there, more so than videos. But I'm going to start trying to put on more videos so we can engage a bigger audience. So that's it for the Empisal Deluxe Goldline Automated Zigzag or Variable Zigzag. If you have any more questions, please let me know below. And that's it. So thank you very much. I hope that was helpful for somebody who owns this machine. It's a lovely machine and it works beautifully. There's just not many of them around, I don't think, anymore. And I certainly can't find a manual for it. So if you do have a manual or know of where I can download one, that it would be very helpful. But like I said, in the meantime, I've just been using this one, which has basic guides on how to correctly put in your bobbin, how to thread. Now, if you own different sewing machines, you probably can work it out, but each machine is slightly different. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to my channel.